Welcome to Watercolor Wednesday. My name is Kathy, and we are going to be doing some geranium flowers today, so come join us. Right, we're going to do flowers today, and the geranium. This was a study I did on the street of Sarasota with one of those street baskets of flowers. And basically, I'm going to do the same approach, only I'm using a photograph. Now, notice that the colors here in my geranium is very red. I prefer those red colors, but in this particular photograph, I have a geranium plant that I'm going to focus on, and I say pick part of this composition because it's a bit much to do the whole thing. But as a reference, I can really see what's going on in some of these places, like this little bunch here. Now, typically, what I might think about doing is designing the space with just a few hints about how I might like this design to really grow. And I won't be doing absolutely everything in this design, but I know that I love the way these pieces come up and grow toward the sun. And I'm going to sketch. First, let me go back to this one little spot because it will help you see what's going on with this type of plant. It has a flower, blooming flower. It has these little stamens that come out, and there are, what I'm guessing, 5 petals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a petal that's coming in from another flower. So there, the geranium has a grouping of flower pieces, and so it looks like what we have is a little ball going on of a shape of flowers, but within that ball is a group of petals that belong to individual little buds, little flower shapes. So I'm not sure I'm being scientific with what I'm describing, but I think it makes sense to the layman or the artist that's just looking. So if I have a gardener in here, I'm sorry. I'm not saying things quite right, but look how the stems come out and the shapes of these little petals radiate. So I have this one central flower, and there seems to be another one here with the petals that come, and they're going to, we just have to make some observations about those. And I have, since this one should have been a little bit lower, I'm just going to make up a few petals falling behind here. And then I want to observe some of the leaves. I have to admit that while I was doing this particular one, I paid close attention to the shapes of geranium leaves and how these stems came up and made these little radiating lines. And these are other buds. Now I see some of those buds here, and I see some here. So I'm going to sketch a little bit with a leaf in here. And it's a little vague, but I'm going to kind of suggest, maybe I'm going to throw a few more petals into this little ball area. And I think this makes an interesting shape for that base. And that's kind of like my focal point, except for I'm going to probably have more contrast up here. It may just sort of be a diagonal composition. All right. I want to put in a few more stems, and maybe these will be buds. And I'm not going to finish painting every one of these. I'm going to get some, I'm going to mainly try to show you, I'll talk first about the composition of what I want to do, and then I will do some petals and try to create, show you how I like to create depth. The way this works here is the dark goes behind, and when you have a petal, you're painting these, and then you're creating shadows that go behind so that you know which ones are on top. the leaves are going to start light, and then we're just going to build dark behind the leaves. So this is rather dark, and I'm going to make a little more contrast as I use this reference today. I want to show some red that might be here, just popping behind without a whole lot of detail, and the stems that help to hold up those flowers. And there's a radiation from the design, kind of like every now and then you might even see a turned shape. And then this may become just dark spaces. Thinking that this is kind of neat here, so I'll put some buds, and just observing the way they have a light bud, and then they have some green kind of growing around it. And these are stems, so they have to have 2 lines. This can go in front, just like it is here. And I'm obviously going to need a leaf or 2 coming here. And this might be a good way to show an edge, and then just sort of suggest those shapes hanging down. There's another little line. All right. You're going to find within the photograph shapes that you can place. Remember, you're designing your own composition. And, boy, this is a long stem coming down. And I want to break that up with a simple leaf shape coming in here. And these will probably be some darker shapes. Now, this flower has a simple one big shape kind of in this area, and I'll do some more petals that just come out from behind. So this is a definite shape here. And there's another little flower and another flower or 2. Some of these look like little buds. But just paying attention to how interesting this outline shape becomes. And I like this little funny shape that's here. I'm looking at that leaf, and I'm going all over the place because, remember, we're making our own design. How many of these little guys should I do? Well, I think it's nice that they overlap. And I'm going to be leaving the background white, like a little study. So if you choose to do a pale blue or a different color in the background, that is perfectly all right. This one is going to hang down. And I'm going to put some more color back here as a wash. I'm talking to myself because I never know what I'm going to do until I do it. Sometimes it's the fun of painting. So I see some more stems just coming through here. And I have another flower that I'm just going to let be a shape in the background. Not so much particular petals. That was fun. I had a line here, but I don't think I want that one anymore. So I'm going to put a little leaf here, and I'm going to make another little shape. I do need a line or 2 here, and I think these are going to touch. And they are more little buds. And another line. I think these little shapes are kind of nice to have, to repeat. It's a repetition of line and design of shapes. Okay, now, I was glad I had a little shape here, and I think I want them to go behind. All right, I'm ready to paint. What I want to do, I have to make up my mind if I'm going to be doing the reds or if I'm going to go with this fuchsia. This would be, well, you know, that's what I see. Maybe that's what I'll do. But no, let me sort of say this. If I wanted it to be the true red of geranium, this is a cad red. I still would put something like alizarin or rose madder. I'm contaminating my lovely colors here. Here is that cad, but see, I want to get just a little more maroon, more red, and I think you see that red happening here. Now, that would be the color if I was going back to doing the paint here. All right, but I'm going to just go with this, what I call kind of hot pink. This is called Wild Fuchsia. It's American Journey paint. But if you have something like opera and you want to go with a brighter color, this would be the choice you make, or go with either color. So where these flowers are in the background, I'm going to just give them some quick little washes of color, and not always just the same, some a little lighter than others. And while they're still wet, now these are my, you know, I might need a little darker for places like when I start doing the shadows. And because this is kind of going down behind something, I can go ahead and, now let's see, what was that stem going to? Not sure. So, now I'm going to do another little piece that's here behind, and I'm going to hold this tissue. I need to take a little paint off. I'm using a flat brush. I can still wedge around. This is behind, so I'm thinking about building that up. And I want to spread a little lightness to it. So every now and then I just take water and lighten a spot, especially at the top, at the very top, tip top. And this is behind, so I'm not painting the pieces in front at the moment, just painting behind. And I'm just spreading this out a little bit. Go back to a little dark. And painting around these little buds that are going to be sticking out in front. And sometimes what we do when we paint like this, we make decisions as we go along, like I want a few light spots in here. So I'll go back to the water and just add the water. There, I got that one going up a little bit. This is actually in the flower. So let's see, and I've got another spot here, and I wish I had put another spot over here. So why not do it now? Okay. That means that I've got 4 little areas that are just in the background, and then I have 3 or 4. I'll end up with quite a few groups of flowers. These will be less important than the ones in the foreground. I really would go a little darker. Yeah, well, let me just let that go behind that leaf a little bit. And let's do one more little area. So that got kind of fun right here because I allowed the water to let it run, whereas this one's a little more detailed and this one's a little looser. I'm going to make this one very loose. So we'll start with just that wash. And I think this is supposed to be a leaf here. I might change that and I'll just put some more water on that. Yes, let's just change that a little bit. So this is going back behind and it's just an impression. And let's get some dark. And these are some leaves coming in. And we could still add a little detail if we later wish we had. Okay, so now we're back to painting the rest of our flowers, and I do a petal at a time. Now, because I said I wasn't going to paint the whole thing, here I am trying to paint the whole thing, just getting it going. I blend by putting down a color and then just adding the water to soften and create a little more movement in the color that's going on here. So this makes that petal really seem velvety. I'll focus on this group a little bit and then I'll jump into some stems and leaves. So by doing one little petal at a time, you're really focused on getting those shapes. And I tend to also think about, well, would it be a little darker where it hits the center, or would it be darker along the edge? And I can observe that, yes, it can do any of those things. When I'm looking at this particular one, I see light here, dark here. I see light here, I see dark here. So what we want are those, we don't want it to be a flat color. We want it to really have a feeling of light and shadow on the petals. And they are nice and smooth on the edges. So if I have well, let's see, that's my water brush and this is my color brush. So back to making some of these petals, and then I'm going to show you shadows that you would put once they go behind each other. I'm trying not to let these run together. I'm hoping that the flower has a sense of individualness, and I pulled a little more magenta, a little more purple to push some darks while it's wet. And then this actually might be dark behind here since it's going behind another shape. Now this is going to be in shadow, so I've already started making it darker, but I will do another addition of dark. Now this is a petal right here that's coming out from behind that flower. And there are other petals that are coming out even behind this one. The edge here would probably be a little lighter. So we're building this little mass or little cluster of individual shapes that make up the geranium plant. So right now we have some vague ones, and in the foreground we're going to have more realistic pops of real. This is more than likely, unless I make that the focal point where I want my eye to go, so I will have the most detail here. And again, you could keep your design very simple just by doing a few shapes, a few flower clusters and leaves. All right, I'm going to let the light be at the end here, dark here, and light at the end, with a little dark on this side. Sometimes they're just little strokes that need to happen more. Let's see, I want those to dry, so I'm going to work out here for a little bit. And water. And I lost my petal in here. I guess this would be behind something. And then this one would definitely be behind. When we're working on dry paper, the paint tends to dry a little faster than if I had wet this. And it's not necessary when we're doing a little detail study such as this. All right, I'm going to be letting this dry before I do a whole lot more. So I'm going to set, I think I pretty well have finished that. I'm going to set my two brushes here so I could come right back to it and jump into some green stems. And I'm going to be using the Skips Green, any yellow green that you have. Now these are fairly dark in the photograph, but from life I did observe a lighter green with a touch of red, which is kind of interesting. So let's do a few of these stems. I know that pencil lines bother some people, and if they do, then they can be erased pretty much afterwards. I like my pencil lines and tend to just let them be part of my design. While the green is still wet, I tend to say, all right, underneath, and this is the little bit of red that I was talking about, underneath the growth, it's going to get a little darker. Sometimes there's just a little line that runs through the green, and I just like to have a bit of color going on. I will also begin to put a darker line with my green, and I would need, I'll just hit a couple of little bit of that red I had here to dull this green. So next to the stems that come behind, or they're going to have some darks where they disappear behind. And these had little leaves, so we're just giving a little variety. I want to blend some of those down a little bit so that your stems have some, we could almost go with the light and shadow side, and I feel like there would be on the bottom side a little darker. Okay, let's do some washes with the lighter green for a leaf or two. Now, I'm going to just throw in that lovely Skips Green, light green. I'm going to leave a little bit for lights and darks. I'm going to leave some variation just by putting that down like this. Always start light and build dark. It's a lot easier than going too dark to start with. Now we are going to get some darks in here, and I'm not done with all my stemming and what's going to happen. Obviously there'll be some lights and darks even in the dark background here. And maybe I'll just let this be a bit of a vignette. So lots of these greens. And then let me go back and do my shadows with, see, what was this? Was that my red? Yes, that was my water. Okay, that goes over here. I'm going to now do a little bit, I'll just use this brush. I'm going to make some shadows with my flowers, and then I'll come back and do some shadows with my greens. All right, this is the darker, so that, I think I'll just do this so I can put my hand here. I want a bit of dark shadow, and I'm looking now at making this feel like that these petals are on top, and I'm casting little soft shadows onto my flowers that are down below. I'm going to try to get rid of some of these white spots because I really don't have white spots. These are a little bit darker, so I'm putting a little more purple in and hitting these really dark spots here. And this helps to push the petals back. So sometimes if you just do a little curve shape, it's a little too hard. That would be a little hard. So I just take a little water and soften out that edge. And you get, I think, a nicer feeling for shadow shapes. See how that's already popping out a little bit better. I won't do a whole lot more with these pieces except for maybe adding a few suggestions of centers. And these are little stamens that really you can see. And again, a few more shapes to shadow, and I'm just sort of eliminating some of my whites. This could go back into the background with who knows what. That's like the flower is still continuing here, and it's just a shape behind. And maybe this has another little shape. Seems like I should have put one there. And just push that out. This would also look very good if we were doing it red instead of fuchsia. Here. That would be a little darker. I think this is also another little dark shape. Let me get this in. This little piece right here. But then it might be light on the edges. All right, so let's do a couple of leaves to see how you would do that. And I still keep seeing something else to put in here. So the darker shapes are going to be underneath everything. They are going to be as if they're behind and they're just disappearing. I do like to put a little blue sometimes in those darkest spots. You can see that adding that little bit more dark does make a more 3D effect, more depth to your design. And you will get the popping out of the petals that are closest to you. And a little detail also is nice. There's little stamens. Okay, back to the leaves. I'm going to add dark green, and there's my green. This is Viridian, and it's way too bright. So all I do is take some red and add that, and I get more of an olive green. So and I need several degrees of dark. I need some middle value, and I need some darker values. So here I have like three different values. So I might start fairly dark right behind and bring that to help this look like this leaf is right behind this flower. And I want to give some veins to the leaf. And then I'm going to soften it a little bit with some water. And I could use a little bit of the lighter green too. And this, sometimes you want to do this 2 or 3 times, not just here we go, we've done it one layer and then we add a little change. You might want to come back and do, I'm looking at these colors. I feel like there should be some yellow in here. As you see, I did have a little feeling of yellow there. I might need a touch of yellow. Yellow. There. That's nice. My finger must have put some pink in there too, which I don't mind one bit. Okay. Now, if I feel like I should have kept a little light at the end of this leaf, this is fine just to lift a little. Keep it a little light. And I know that this one right here would be dark because it's been turned, and that will be a little lighter there. So I just add water. Let me see, where's my water? I need a clean brush because I forgot what was on both of these brushes. And I just bring that out. And the lines that are here will be suggested. And I noticed that these veins tend to come out from like a central point, like right here, and then they just sort of come all in this direction. And then all we do is soften those lines with water. All right, so all of this is not finished. It's still going to show you how to do the leaves. I'm going to come in with some background, and you're going to create your own composition. Then you're going to start with your flowers. You're going to build more shadows with some darks. I think I just decided to go ahead and make that whole shape go ahead and be dark. Now, to make a really dark background, I have to push my blues, my greens, some purple. Be careful with purple. There we go. We get this really, really dark. And then to make all of this pop really nicely, we're going to fill in the negative spaces between the leaves that you have decided to point out. And every now and then, you want to have some variation in that very dark background. So we just add a little light change of color and just wiggle that around, and then just keep pushing dark and keeping the contour of your nice leaves. And I think what I sometimes do is just suggest a texture down here to say, it just keeps going. We're just going to keep pushing dark around. Now this was an ambiguous area here, so I had suggested that there was a stem, and I want to make this dark come around and capture this leaf shape. So what do I do with something like that? I just take some water, maybe a little light, and soften that up. And let this just say, I am a background. I'm just a bunch of leaves that kind of run together. Now, just because I have, there's something I feel like it has to happen. There will be reflections of some reds in here, because our red and green is really our complementary color scheme. So I should add that, and look at what a pretty gray it just made. And now I've got pink in there, but that's okay. I have these little blurry, sometimes, oh gosh, that's pretty. Sometimes things like that happen that I didn't know I would do, and it made me very happy. Okay, gosh, I would love to keep going, but I want everybody to paint. So some of you have made some sketches. I think you've been inspired to make your own geranium design today. And we're going to leave the paper white, and we're just going to keep going. But this gives you the idea of how to do your geranium. Have fun, and thanks for being here.